So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how internet is redefining education. So this is in a little bit of a tutorial style. So if you live and breathe internet, bear with me. It might not be that new, but for some of you, and especially the people who are dialed in or listening in from outside, I hope this is going to be interesting. So, in order to look at how internet impacts education, it's probably better to look at what was education like the pre-internet era. So, let's go back 30 years and look at 1985 and assume you are in Colombo and assume you are asking a question. Somebody told you in computer science there's this interesting concept called Fibonacci sequence and you want to know what it is. So how do you go about figuring out what the Fibonacci sequence is? What should he or she do, the student do to go figure out and educate themselves? And there's not that many options. So the first thing you might be able to do is go see whether you can find a class in a private course offered, or if you're a university student, if there's a class in university. And this is a hit or miss thing. You have a question you want to answer today, and you might have to wait 6 months and take a class and hope that will teach that. And it's a very inefficient way of answering a question. But that was one of the most common ways that those days we would get some knowledge. Second, you might have to go find a book. In those days, uh, British Council and American Center was one of the two big libraries. They were famous for one thing. That was the only place you had air conditioning you can go to and not pay. But also they were fountain of knowledge. And you hope you can go to one of those libraries and they will have a book that will explain what Fibonacci sequence is. And for a lot of common concepts, that was true. But there were many things that they didn't have a book, and then you have to go search more. Perhaps you can find a teacher or expert or your father's friend that might know something about it, who might have gone and learn about it. And so if you can find somebody, if you're lucky enough to find somebody, they can explain to you what this concept was. And a lot of times as students those days, you go around trying to find people who knew something and ask these questions. So that was one of the ways that you can get information. And finally, what end up most of the time is you sit yourself and trial and error trying to find something, learn something. And it's a really hard process. And sometimes you think you understand, but in many cases, you might be not getting the exact picture because you don't have anybody to give you good feedback. And so this is the way, this is why education was really hard. It was very precious and it was hard to get outside institute like a university or a school. So what did you do today? How's the world different? And what's different today is we have prevalence of internet. From even in remote places, things like nanasalas to mobile internet, everywhere, Sri Lanka, you can get access to internet. And with that, how would you solve this question? How do you figure out what Fibonacci sequence is? The first and foremost thing you do is you go search the web and you ask the question from the web, from your phone in there. You can go to bunch of places, something like Google, that basically has indexed the entire internet. It's a very good place to start. Or some place like Wikipedia, which is basically a place that kept the world's encyclopedia. Thousands of people have contributed and curated the world's database. And there are some lesser known places like Wolfram Alpha that understand a lot of science and math concepts, so you can kind of dig deep a little bit into that. So you can go and ask that thing, and it can in instantly in 5 minutes it can enlighten you. What else can you do? Another interesting thing you can do is go do an online discussion. For example, I am in computer science. So if you are doing programming, there's a site called Stack Overflow where bunch of experts and beginners all come together with interesting questions in programming. And the neat thing about this is all these people, experts, are very willing to help others. So if you ask a question, there will be either already provide answers you can search, or somebody will come and answers that. And the neat thing about something like forums is there's a forum for almost every subject that you can think of. This is a worldwide phenomenon, and people from around the world gathered in these forums and help each other. And this is a way, even in esoteric small areas or some kind of knowledge, you can go find some useful people to give you feedback. So this is some thing that you can immediately participate. Another thing you can do today is go to online bookstore. So for example, amazon.com is a global bookstore. It has about 22 million book titles available for sale. Almost everything that is published and available published is there. But more important, it has about 1.5 million downloadable books. So you can if you have e-reader on your phone, you can download a book, and in few minutes that you have the book available for you. And there are also now some local bookstores coming within Sri Lanka, so you can find Sinhala language books available, and some low cost books. Obviously, this is an expensive proposition still, because some of these global books are not that cheap. But if you want to get some very specific knowledge, this is something you can do immediately and have access to this information. Another very prominent thing that happened about 10 years ago. This started at MIT. At MIT decided it is a world university, and one of its missions is to give out information. So it decided, when the internet was ripe, that we are going to put all our courses to available to public, make it available. So MIT by now has about 2,200 plus courses of all the material available free to anybody who want to download. So if you go to the OCW site, you will see by area, by fields, you can go find a course that's taught by at MIT. And here's a course that I normally teach. And in that course, I have everything, including the syllabus. We video recorded every lecture, so all the lectures are available to watch, and all the problem sets, projects, all these things are available. So if you want to learn an area, here's a place where you have the material that very well developed a set of material from a place like MIT available, and this is a great resource for use. And this started 10 years ago, has matured a lot more recently. And if you look at information and explaining concepts, especially for younger schools, for example, from middle school to high school, even like grades 4, 5, 6 to grade 12 type areas, concepts on math, biology, science, one interesting thing called Khan Academy. So this person, Sal Khan, a few years ago, started creating these recordings of explaining interesting concepts. And he was a really good tutor, and it became very well recognized. So let me actually play a little bit of a video clip to kind of give you, if you haven't seen this, what you can get at a place like Khan Academy.
Let's talk about geometric sequences. Geometric sequences, which is a class of sequences where successive number is the previous number multiplied by the same thing. So what am I talking about? Well, let's multiply A times R, and then I'm going to get AR. I'm going to get AR. Let's multiply it times, to get the third term, let's multiply the second term times R. And then what am I going to have? Well, I'm going to have A, it's a different shade of yellow. I'm going to have AR squared multiplied by R again. You're going to get AR to the third power, and you just keep on going like that. And this is the way I've denoted this. This is an infinite geometric sequence. We just keep going on and on and on and on. And different ways we can denote it. We can denote it explicitly. We could say that our sequence is A sub n, starting with the first term, going all the way to infinity, with A sub n equaling, well, we see an A here for any term. It's going to be A.
So let me stop it there. So idea there is somebody has put lot of time, and a really talented person creates these videos explaining many different concepts. And in many English speaking countries now, if you want to understand something, assume you don't have a good explanation given in school, here's a place you can go and get a video about that concept. And also on top of videos, what place like that have is bunch of questions that will test your knowledge. So you can look at a 5-minute video and there are a bunch of questions asked, then you can answer those questions and get a feedback whether you understood the material or not. And if you can't guess the questions right, that means you haven't probably gotten the concepts right. Perhaps go back and watch the videos. So these are the kind of things available. And today in a place like United States, lot of school children are using it. And I think if in even Sri Lanka, if you are a little bit English savvy, you can use that. And I heard there are a bunch of projects trying to translate this into Sinhala and Tamil also. So another very interesting thing that's happening these days is called MOOCs, massively online open courseware. This is basically redefining what higher education is after 2 millennia. For 2 millennia, higher education was very simple. You go to an institute of higher education, and there are people called professors, and between probably 5 to a couple of 100 people sits like yes, and a professor sits in a podium and explains some concept and go through a class. This is how education was done. It's what done. It was done 2,000 years ago, probably around a tree, and it's how it is done today. And this concept is about to be changed, I think, within next, probably within our lifetime. To put it in perspective, think about probably 100 years ago, if you want entertainment, you had local theater. Some good entertainers in your region put a small production, they practiced a little, and you went, probably a couple of hundred people watched that theater. Then movies came, mega busters. So what happened was, that means some really good actors, good production, everything, put millions of dollars and creates these amazing movies that everybody watches. It's completely changed entertainment. And I think education is something like that's going to happen, and MOOCs is like that. And most of the key neat thing about MOOCs is this information is mostly free. And sometimes if you want to get a certificate, you have to pay a little bit. But it is a free resource available from major universities. So there are three big players today, and I'm going to talk to you about what came out of MIT, edX. So edX started at MIT called MITx. Basically, a few years ago, one of my colleagues decided to put one of his classes online and invite everybody in the world to participate in that class. And he got about, I think, 200,000 people signing up at the beginning. And instead of teaching 150 students at MIT, he was teaching 200,000. And it became a very interesting concept. And then it became MITx. Uh, Harvard joined afterwards and made edX, and now there are about 70 top world universities contributing material to this. And these are their classes. This is their crown jewel, and mostly given free. So if you go to edX, there are 500 plus courses available in many different areas. And these classes are amazing, and they have a lot of good material in here. So let me talk about one interesting class. And last year, I was getting very fascinated with modern biology, because all the genomic revolution, there's a lot of interesting things happen in biology. So I want to learn something about it, because as I went through A levels, I didn't do biology after grade 10, so I have no knowledge about biology, and I want to figure out what's this all this thing is about. And last summer, I was traveling between Singapore and Sri Lanka, and I said, wait a minute, I'm going to take this class. And Eric Lander, who basically started the Human Genome Project at MIT, so he was one of the pioneers of the genomics revolution, was teaching this class. So I'm like, hey, it's fun to take a class from Eric Lander. So between my travels, I basically start watching these lectures, and took some of the quizzes and exams, and I got to know a lot about biology. So let me show you why it is so exciting by showing a little bit of a clip of what it's like to be part of Eric's class.
We've got 3 lectures for you. The first is about amazing proteins. You'll see all sorts of proteins, and we'll talk about the structures of proteins. In the second lecture, we're going to talk about enzymes, those remarkable proteins that carry out chemical transformations in the cell. And then in the third lecture, we're going to talk about biochemical pathways, how enzymes are strung together to carry out whole series of transformations. And in particular, we're going to talk about one pathway called glycolysis that breaks down sugar. Now, in addition to the lectures, you'll see on the course website, we've got some lab videos for you this week. Nathaniel is going to go to the lab and show you how to purify some proteins. He's going to purify green fluorescent protein and also an enzyme called beta-galactosidase. Brian is going to show you how we really know about the structures of proteins through X-ray crystallography. And then finally, the problems this week are particularly cool. We have electronic problems this week where you can actually see and spin around and zoom in on proteins to really understand their structure. And we have a game for you, the web-based game called Folded, where you yourself can fold proteins. Glad to have you back for week 2 of 700X. Looking forward to it.
So it was extremely interesting. I mean, me at my age, I was taking a university class, and it's keeping me excited. I'm learning new things. This is something anybody can do from anywhere. And I think for a lot of people who are here, this is something you can do too. It's information is available, it's free. And on top of these videos, what they have done is have lot of small videos, 10-15 minute long, and after video there's an online quiz, so you can actually take the quiz and see how you understand, and there are weekly exercises, and then there are quizzes, so it's like now taking a normal class but on your own pace. You don't have to go to a class in a certain time, and at night if you have some free time you can do this.
Welcome back to 700.
And also, so here's a basically quiz you have in between. So online it will ask questions and you will answer, and you can test your knowledge, and it will like even record that. Other very interesting thing is I was not taking this class myself. There were, I think, what 40,000 other people taking the class at the same time. So what that means is you have a community. And if you have a question, there are these discussion groups. You can go to the discussion groups and ask questions. And there were some MIT teaching assistants who were answering, but most of the questions were answered by other students who were studying the class. So we kind of help each other answering the questions. So you are working in this global community, and it was kind of really fun to have that kind of community. So you don't feel alone taking a class. You are taking class with not 20 people sitting in the classroom, but basically 40,000 people sitting all over the world. I mean, this is not just Western world. This is all over India, China, South America, Africa, Asia, everywhere. People sitting in this classroom. So this is becoming global phenomenon. And the edX model is very interesting. You can take the class for free, and they will give you what we call an honor code certificate. Say, okay, you told that your name is Saman Amarasinghe. Okay, here's a certificate saying Saman Amarasinghe took this class. Here's how they did in the exam. But also, if you really is interested to use this material, you can pay them some money and get a verified certificate that they will verify your identity and make sure you get a certificate that you can go show an employer or somebody else that you took this class. So in this sense, you're actually taking a real class and a place from MIT. So this is going to have an amazing big impact on education, as I alluded earlier. So if you look at what the education system, even in country like Sri Lanka, you have universities that are hard to get into, and under that there are some national high schools that are also not that easy to get into, and at the bottom of this kind of pyramid you have like all the other schools in there. And this pyramid is even in global sense even higher level. There are top elite universities on top of that, global universities that's the top of this pyramid. And this pyramid was basically there because resources are limited. So access to education has always been limited because you can only put so many people in a classroom. So what you have is the top people end up in the top universities, and the next group down this pyramid is there. And if you look at, let me go back a little bit in here, and what happens is, good old days, there's the top elites, and there's a second elite, third elite. So if you can't get the top, you get to the next, you get to the next universities, and then it pyramids goes down. But what's happening with MOOCs is very interesting. Very few top universities will be content providers. They can maintain this top elite, but then everybody have access to the same content. So now, what does it mean second, third, or fourth? They all have access to the same thing. So the middle and the bottom will start collapsing. So unless you are in the top place, you have everybody will access to the same information. So there will be interesting democratization process. So if you look at that a little bit deeply, right now, education has been always limited access. So the way you get access is you will be lucky with your geographic location, either born in a country probably has a lot of education resources, or you born in a city like Colombo that has a lot of education resources. Lot of time education is dictated by income, whether you can afford to go to these expensive classes, expensive universities. And of course, ability and intelligence matter. So if you are exams, you have to do the exams well. But more importantly, desire and diligence. You want to learn, and you want to actually work hard to learn. Those things matter. But what's happening now is education is becoming a lot more democratized. Basically, geographic locations not doesn't matter with internet anymore. You sitting anywhere can have access to the same course material, and most of these materials are coming for free because you reduce the cost of education to a point that almost everybody can afford that. So at that point, what matters is basically ability and also desire and diligence. You really want to learn. What this doing is it's becoming that everybody can become lifelong learners. It doesn't mean that you don't have time to go to school or take a class. Anytime you have some free time, you can take one of those classes, and you can keep learning new material continuously. So this is going to change the way we behave. There's not going to be a time period in the first 22 years you are going to go to study, and afterwards you're going to practice. No, you are going to keep studying forever, and that is going to change the way I think we evolve, we learn, and how we work, and that's going to have a big impact. The next interesting thing I want to tell is you don't have to settle for less anymore. You can find the best education. It doesn't mean you, if you are sitting in a rural area, you might be able to get the material available for anybody in Colombo. Forget Colombo, you can get material available for somebody in Boston because everything is in the internet. So you can aim high, and this will have a big impact. So what matters today is intelligence, ability, desire, and diligence. I will tell you a small story and finish this. So when the first MOOC class at MIT was taught, 6002X, a student from Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia took this class. So Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia is a much poorer place than most of Sri Lanka in there. And that student basically aced every exam. He got 100 marks for every exam, and it's actually even a hard thing to do at MIT. I mean, very few MIT students will do that. And that basically brought enough attention that next year MIT basically took him in as a student. Now he's a student at MIT. And what these things is doing is it gave that person who would have never had a chance to compete at the world stage the ability to go and show his abilities at the world stage, and his abilities were recognized, and he was able to benefit from that. And I think this is what's happening to education. What will dictate where you are is not where your geographic location of how rich or poor your parents are. It's your ability and your desire, and I think that will have an amazing impact for education. So if you think last 20 years had a huge impact in education because of internet, I think the next 20 years is going to have even a bigger impact. Thank you.